make it in this tired old city. Can you be? Don't you think you've said enough to me? I'll always be here. You can count on me. Even let you tell me anything you think will make you free. Think will make you free. Oh, I'm lonely in the streets again. I don't mind. I've got time. Clear it out and see. I don't.
Hello, VC. Crazy Jimmy here with another Acid Archive Diary submission. This will be number 8 in my series. And today I'm going to actually have 2 because the submission that I'm going to show you actually branched out into another band, which happens to be one of my favorite LPs of the early 70s. It's certainly in my top 100 of all time. Actually, both of these are in my top 500 of all time, which I will eventually get to. That's a video I'll probably get to down the road, but I want to get this one rolling with none other than this band here. And the band name is Whistler, Chaucer, Detroit, and Greenhill. And it's called The Unwritten Works of Geoffrey, etc. And let me just show you that there. It's from 1968. And this is an original pressing in the shrink. It's got the little sample copy there. Show you the back. This band actually features a very young T Bone Burnett, who you do not see in the pictures here. He's not located anywhere, but not only did he produce this album, but he also wrote several songs on it. And, you know, it's just he was already accomplished even at a very young age back in 1968 with this band. Just a phenomenal album. And it's up there, definitely in my top 500 all time. And the band they became, which I'm going to get to after, Space Opera, is in my top 100. Just phenomenal music. But let me go ahead and read the submission here. And of course, I was able to figure out how to add some clips of the music prior to me coming on. I still need to figure out how to get the clips right, because right now I'm kind of doing the primitive recording of the clips, but I will get there for sure. But I wanted to be able to let you guys hear a little bit of the music I'm going to be talking about prior to me talking about it. So going forward, a lot of my videos will have some clips. But here's the book, and let me go to the page, which is bookmarked. Page 351 for Whistler, Chaucer, Detroit, and Greenhill. And by the way, none of those are not the band members' names. It's just a fictitious name they made up to sound like their last names, but they're not, which we'll go over in a minute. But 1968 on the Uni label, which we'll show you in a minute. This is one of those LPs like the first Perth Co-Conspiracy, that pretty much everyone who hears is impressed by, in which yet remains overlooked in the big picture. From 1968, it's pretty advanced for its time, with a sound that would become more popular in the early 70s, a mix of West Coast, folk, and singer-songwriter. It opens with 2 great tracks, the Fred Neilish folk blues of the Viper, and the psychedelic Day of Childhood, which sounds like a lost track from the Bob Smith album House of Collection. Has a similar sound. And that was one of the I think that was the first clip I played for you from the album. The rootsy folk rock sound dominates the album with strong, world-weary vocals, appropriate use of violin and harmonica, and good songwriting. A couple of tracks that look back to the Sgt. Pepper era are hardly high points, but the album is strong enough to handle this diversity. For an unknown band, the maturity and self-confidence on display is remarkable. Essential. and not rare. Alas, an oddly amateurish mixing and mastering job created a thin, tinny sound like listening to a transistor radio. A remastered reissue would be welcome. The band names are I don't know how to pronounce that, but basically they're not their names. Like I said, T Bone Burnett is one member under the name Joseph Burnett on the cover. And a few others went on to form Space Opera, who released a unique and occasionally wonderful early 70s LP, 1972 to be exact. So there you have it. Let me show you the actual label. It's on the Uni label. And like the book said, it's pretty much spot on. The sound quality on the original, because the way it was mastered, is definitely not the best. It's kind of tinny. It's kind of primitive. It does have that transistor AM radio sound to it, but I actually think it adds some charm to the album itself. So, I mean, that's my feeling on it, but definitely adds to the atmosphere of the album. And here's the cover again. And there's a ton of variety on here, and I think you guys have heard me talk about this in the past, but I am all about replay value on an album. So if it's got replay value, it's a top album for me. And this particular album has a ton of replay value because there's so much variety on it. And I did pull a really cool article here from, I think it was from Pop Diggers, but basically it says this album and band was predicted to be the next big thing. In its original liner notes, the studio-only project with imaginary names got only as far as becoming one of the greatest albums of all time, according to the Mojo collection book of the same title, some 30 years upon its initial release in 1968. So that's pretty high praise. Recorded by a bunch of Texans under the auspices of T Bone Burnett, named Joseph on the album, who not only produced the thing, but also contributes 1/3 of the material. The unwritten works does happen to be worthy of mention among such contemporary soulmates as Buffalo Springfield or Moby Grape, providing us with an equally wide soundscape, quite often being reminiscent of the written works of Neil Young. Be it the rootsy country flavor of the opening, The Viper, with vocal harmonies more than rich enough to take us way back to the Buffalo days, as do the lysergic pocket symphonies of The Day of Childhood and House of Collection, both also offering a peep into the mind gardens of fellow honorary Buffalo David Crosby, while Ready to Move also adds some of the raga flavor reminiscent of the remaining notorious Byrd brothers. Besides these, there's also the psychedelic baroque country, if there ever was one, of Upon Waking from the Nap, the Height Ashbury scene in the making sounding funky R&B of Live Till I Die, the moody psych Chasson Street in Paris, which is one of my top tracks on the album, or even a pair of breezy little pop gems such as Pure as the Freshly Driven Snow and a tribute to Sundance, both of which, along with another quirky little number on Lusty Gentleman, share Emmett Rhodes' kind of a knack for melody. Now, even though you might doubt its inclusion into the above-mentioned book that I mentioned there with Mojo, I'm sure you wouldn't mind finding it bubbling under close enough. So, not only is it in the Acid Archives, but also the Mojo collection book calls it one of the greatest albums of all time. Now, I wouldn't go there, but like I said, it's in my top 500. I'll tell you that, and that's high praise. So now, moving on to what this band became. So basically, 3 of the 4 members of this band went on to change their name to Space Opera, which is this. And this is Space Opera's first album from 1972. So basically, David Bullock, Scott Fraser, and Philip White became space opera. And there they are there. 3 of the 4. And they changed the name, which I recommend. I'm glad they did. And they created this masterpiece from 1972. And let me just show you. This is an original pressing on the Epic label. Let me show you a little bit of what's in here. So it's one of those. It's one of these uni-packs. Kind of like what you saw with a lot of bands were doing this, where they have the slip, the little cover here, and then they have the pocket right in here. But that's what the originals were. KE32117 on Epic. And I'll explain this one a little bit. I did play a clip from this album called Outlines, track number 3, which is simply just a beautiful melody. I mean, brings you right back to the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, Jackie Blue. This was prior to Jackie Blue, but it has that sound. There's a lot of tracks that actually have that Jackie Blue country pop sound. And also a little bit of Todd Rundgren and Burt Bacharach in there for chord changes. All those major 7th chord changes in Outlines, just simply beautiful. Here's the inner sleeve, which has each song, and it has what each band member is playing. It kind of has all the notes from the master tapes, and it shows you what take each track was. So Outlines was take 18, and it shows you who was playing what, bass, drum, floor toms, flutes, you name it. Really, really cool notes on the inner sleeve. And then inside also there was a promo release, a promo press, all about space opera. So really cool stuff. And I'll read you a little bit about this. Let me just show you the label. And again, this is, and I'm not kidding when I say this, but this would be in my top 100 of all time. Just a fantastic early 70s album. Kind of call it like a mix of psych, a mix of country rock, and a mix of prog. Kind of all thrown into a blender. But here's a little bit about this particular album. This is an obscurity from day one. Space opera is an overlooked classic rock wonder. 3 of the 4 members of Space Opera had previously recorded a stellar country folk psych gem in Whistler, Chaucer, Detroit, and Greenhill. As good as that record was, they were still green compared to the fully developed band, adding Brett Wilson now, that they would become in 1972, which is what I just showed you. From Fort Worth, Texas, but recorded in Canada, Space Opera forged a familiar rock sound in an unheard context, combining blissful 3-part harmonies with searing guitar leads and righteous, intricate jams. This is not a reissue, but this kind of goes on to talk about the reissue, which I'm going to get into in a minute. Space opera combines all these musical forces in references, such as the Byrds, a little bit of Zappa, a little bit of Rundgren, and like I said, a little bit of Bacharach, and forces like nothing I've ever heard before. Still, if you have ever hankered for the sounds of local FM rock radio, this is an album you won't believe didn't hit the airwaves. So there's also a lot of, the harmonies remind me of Crosby, Stills, and Nash too. I mean, the harmonies are beautiful. There's like these 4-part harmonies. Just stunning. Songs are well developed and near classical in form. So you kind of heard that in Outlines, the snippet I played you. Developing into a finely tuned suites, Country Max leads off as the clear hit record that was the single from the album. Remarkably recognizable. It's the kind of record you feel like you've heard a million times, but haven't. Moodier numbers like Holy River and Riddle jangle their way into your head with good craftsmanship and memorable refrains. Guitar Suite is the album's instrumental centerpiece that successfully merges prog and country rock during every moment of sound. Gnarly double-tracked harmonica. Yeah, let me just flip this over. And tape effects stealing the show. The recordings are so warm, it's as if the master tapes were filtered through a rainbow of vintage tape machines, and the flutes on outlines even sound suspiciously Mellotron-esque, although they're real flutes. Some of the beauty to this record must be owed to the warmth and grit that you just can't get with modern digital technology. More than pleased to discover one like this, beautiful songs that are truly unheard classics. These fellows clearly understood how to create rock music in a way more advanced than many better-known contemporaries and are still awaiting their recognition, which they haven't really got. So the original pressing sounds fantastic. Compared to the Whistler album, it's night and day. The way this was recorded is just phenomenal. The recording and the production is fantastic. On top of that, the performance, the musicianship is stellar. It's there. The writing is stronger. So overall, this is just an album that I think everyone in the VC needs to own, in addition to the unwritten works. So these are albums that are not going to break the bank either. I believe you can pick up this one for, depending on condition, between 30 and 80, depending on condition. And Space Opera, same thing, depending on condition, anywhere from 25 to 80. I do have a sealed original here, which I probably will never open because it's a top 100 for me. So I'm going to keep a player copy and keep a sealed copy, but you definitely want to seek this out. It's priced right now. It's not like insane. But believe me, as they catch on, more and more people hear their music, I think you'll see those prices rise over time. So, but hey, appreciate you all watching. Of course, please hit that subscribe button if you like what you're seeing or hearing. I'm gonna have quite a bit more content coming out. Let me grab my content list. So, more stuff to follow. Of course, more Acid Archive Diaries are coming. I'm going to have some segments on 90s underground and indie and lo-fi rock. Post-punk. I love the post-punk scene from the 70s and early 80s, so you'll see some of that, hear some of that, and see some of that. Power pop, vintage power pop from the 70s and early 80s. Got more Guided by Voices to come. I think I posted 2 videos on them. I'm probably going to have about 8 more to come. 60s and 70s psych and Americana. Probably my favorite genres, especially Americana, bands like the Byrds and, God, now I'm losing my brain here, but all that Americana from the early 70s, that singer-songwriter and group Americana that came out with the harmonies and just pristine stuff. I think I already had some content on that and showed you some of my favorite Americana albums from the early 70s, like Cowboy and Country Max, bands like that. And then a segment on hype stickers and a recommended if you like vinyl segment. I already did one on Big Star, and I'll have a lot more of those to come because I think that's kind of how we learn about other bands in the vinyl community. So, like, if you like a certain band, who doesn't want to know what other stuff is out there that kind of was influenced by it or sounds like it? So I'll be doing a lot of those segments because that's just stuff that I dig. So, but hey, appreciate you guys all watching. As always, please hit subscribe, comment as well. I try to answer every comment if I can. So appreciate you guys always. Peace. Take care.